Step into the world of the Superpro podcast, where we lay out the blueprints of home service excellence. Join us as we break down the wins and struggles of pros who are at the top of their game. Put their wisdom into practice as you build your company's success.
Welcome to the Superpro podcast, the heartbeat of home service excellence. I'm Roland, your host and co-founder of Housecall Pro, and I'm an advocate for all the hardworking pros out there that are just helping make our homes better, safer, more comfortable. Through Housecall Pro, I've had the privilege of supporting hundreds of thousands of pros just like you, empowering you all to achieve more, stress less, and redefine success in our industry. Today, I am super excited to announce we've got a very special guest. I wanted to welcome Brandon here. Brandon is one of the co-owners and president of I Know a Guy HVAC. I love the name of that company. It's so great. It's so easy. It's so memorable. They're on track to hit $1 million this year. They're really focusing on their margins. And they've got 7 guys and gals, employees with about 6 trucks or so. They service Salt Lake City, Utah, and I'm just really excited to dive in and talk a little bit about Brandon's learnings and see if we can extract some really great golden tactical nuggets for all of you guys and gals out there. So welcome to the show, Brandon. How are you doing?
Good. First off, I just want to say it's an honor to be here, and I appreciate all you have done for our company and, all the others out there. So.
I'm excited to have you on. I think starting a company takes, a certain amount of all right, we're just going to do it. And, I know you, when you started your company, it wasn't too long ago. Tell us a little bit about you getting started in the business and where you came up with the name, I Know a Guy, because that's very clever.
For sure. So I'll start with the name. It was kind of a joke at first. We're thinking, comfort this, comfort that, don't want to get lost in everywhere. And I kept getting tagged on Facebook. Like, does anybody know somebody? And they're like, oh, I know a guy, Brandon Glines. He could come help you with this. And I'm like, you know what? That'll be memorable. So stuck with it. I was worried about, some of our bigger contractors or people not taking us serious. But at the end of the day, everybody just cares about the bottom line. So beyond, with schedule and budget. So it's worked out really well.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of business owners, as they're looking to hit that $1 million mark, I think what's difficult is just hiring your first kind of key employees and really getting beyond just being an owner operator, when you're wearing all the hats. So how did you do that? How did you find your first couple hires, and what were you thinking in your head when you made that step?
Yeah. So really, I never even thought I was going to start an HVAC business, and we can get into that later, but it kind of just flowed in. So I was in the industry for years, and so I knew a lot of different people. So as we started to scale and get big enough that we could actually start bringing on more people, I already had some people in mind. And actually our first employee, Alex, is still with us today, almost 8 years later. And he's just a star. He's been awesome.
That's awesome. I think not enough people tap into their own networks or even realize that they've got a great network of people before they even get into business. And I think you've done a good job at just, leveraging that, whether it was a strategy or not. I think it's really good for folks to know out there is, you don't have to go straight to an Indeed website or post straight to Craigslist. Tapping into your network and people that you already know if you're kind of in the industry beforehand. So you were in the industry beforehand, before starting their business, or what were you doing before I Know a Guy?
Yeah, so I was 18 and my friend's dad worked for the union doing heating and air conditioning, sheet metal work really, but asked if I wanted a job. So I started working there and I'd find myself out of it and got into computers for a bit and then always found my way back. And then, just everything I would do, I would just kind of have this in the back burner. Mm-hmm. And then one day just decided, you know what, let's just do this. And, I didn't know anything about anything at all, business. And then even on the HVAC side, I'd really only worked in sheet metal shops or the installation side. So It was a real baptism by fire as far as, okay, now we've got to fix the systems that we don't know what we're doing and this, and you think you do one change out a week, you'll make more than you ever did before. And, years later, you come to find out that your boss's job wasn't just to smile and run to the bank with paychecks, and cash checks. There's a lot more to it. And I started not knowing anything and just constantly learning, constantly, being outside of my comfort zone, trying to, really utilize people around me that knew more than me, try and hire smarter people than me, anything else. And 8 years later, or just about 8 years, here we are.
Yeah, it's amazing. I feel like, if you can surround yourself with people smarter than you and you've got the humbleness and you can put your ego aside to know that you don't know it all, I think that's definitely like one of those first keys to unlock when you're going to hire your first employees. Because what I often see is pros, they'll hire people that they feel like they're better than. And the problem with that is, like, if you're better than them, then you can never expect the same or better than what you could have done. And so you're already almost out of the gate setting yourself up for a really tough time, especially in a highly skilled trade where, experience matters, know-how matters, and really you have to learn by doing. There's only so much amount of book work you can do to really get it going.
Yeah,
so
I agree with you 100%.
What are some other hard times, that you've gone through that you feel like might have cause you to do some things that maybe others that are, I don't know, a couple years, before you right now, or maybe, hitting the $500,000 mark? What are some hard times you've gone through and then some learnings that you've kind of gotten from there so that people can learn from your mistakes?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we weren't really doing it on purpose, but we were kind of doing the Amazon thing where we were just getting market share because we didn't understand our value. And really, we were in the business of philanthropy. I feel like the first 3, maybe even 4 years where, we're struggling to survive and going to these, really nice homes, putting in great systems for them and, not really taking anything for ourselves. And it actually was a customer of ours. He said a quote that I actually still have hanging in my office right there. And it just says, "The definition of a good deal is a deal that both parties would do again." And I believe that makes perfect sense to me because we don't want to be out here and just try and take advantage of people and get a quick, cash haul. We're in it for the long haul, but we also need to consider our value. And that was a big changer for us, was once we realized, there is value in what we do, all the knowledge that it took to learn how to do it, all the extra work you do, the nights and weekends you're away from your kids, everything else. It needs to have some sort of purpose. So
that's right. I love that quote. A good deal is one that both parties would do again. That's really good. And I think it's so easy to, when you're just starting with business, you're like, I gotta stay busy. But, it doesn't make sense to win every single job. And I feel like people are like, oh, I got 100% close rate. It's like, yeah, if they gave everything for free, everything would be 100% close rate. Housecall Pro would be free for everybody. Like, obviously that doesn't work. You can't build a business like that. And so maybe walk me through some scenarios where you were put in a situation where you either had to like try to be okay with, winning the job or not winning the job or losing it. Like, walk me through like when that happened and kind of like that mental switch when you're like, okay, I'm going to throw this out there and they're either going to go for it or they're not.
Yeah. I mean, it starts from the beginning, trying to do everything yourself, and finally hire a bookkeeper so my books actually make a lot more sense than when I'm trying to do it. I think 2019 we did our P&L on paper, handwritten, because everything was such a mess. No idea what we were doing, just taking money from here to give it to here. We were in the business of transferring money between people and just being in the middle with all the headaches. And it was a little scary, especially once you start to bring on staff and employees and you want to keep everybody busy and get their 40 hours and they have families to provide for. And, as we started to realize our value and understand, the importance of a business, like a business is kind of like a child where if you don't give it food, you don't give it water, but instead of food and water, it's money, it's going to die. It'll get stagnant and it will just kind of flatline. So we somehow scraped through those first hard years, and, making that switch and getting a lot more no's was scary, but 2 bad no's to 1 good yes is better than 3 bad yeses, right? So
I like that way of thinking about it. Bad yeses and good no's. Yeah, because I think everyone thinks no is just bad by default, but it could be good that she didn't take a job, for example.
Yeah.
And
a lot of those no's in the future end up turning out to be good things because they realize what they get, because there's always people out there that'll race you to zero, and that's not a race I want to be in.
Right. Yeah. And I think, at the end of the day, people will respect those that also have boundaries and will say, no, I can't do that. This is the cost to run my business. If you want a different level of service, you could definitely get cheaper. You definitely can. But I only offer this level of service. And in order to maintain this level, this is what I have to charge. And, oftentimes so we were like, okay, yeah, I like this Brandon guy. I like his logo. I know a guy. I like the presentation. I like everything about it, and I'll pay the price. And I think that one's definitely a really good, just golden nugget for a lot of business owners that are just starting to get out. That are like, I just got to keep everybody busy. And even if I'm not making a lot of money or any money, or sometimes, unfortunately, negative money on jobs, they still run them. And you might just be bleeding yourself dry without even knowing it.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
So tell me a little bit. I think, when you first got started, you were mentioning doing your P&L, like pen and paper. What was that moment when you're like, okay, hold on here. I need to track things, and I need to start building systems to actually get to $1 million and beyond. Like, what was that moment? What caused that? And what made you even come seek out something like Housecall Pro to help?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of my big goals for this year is to outsource and delegate. Mm-hmm. I always try and do everything. And, at this point, I'm just bottlenecking the company because, one, I'm sitting in the $20 an hour seat more, and I need to be in that high level executive seat, making better decisions. But 2, you can't scale if you do everything. You need to let go. And I'm still working on that to this day, trusting people, letting other people fail. Cause I know that my failures have been some of my biggest, learning moments that I've had in business. So
I like that. Give people the chance to fail. I think also the grace to fail too. That's a good piece of advice.
Yeah, I agree. So, we just kind of started doing it completely different. It's scary. I only knew how to do installation, didn't know service, like I was saying earlier. So we kind of were in Housecall Pro 3.5 years ago is when we started, January 2020.
Yeah, 21, I think.
2021?
Yeah.
I think, yeah. The beginning of the year. That was the same year that we decided to hire a bookkeeper. The year we started to bring other people in. And if there's anything I could tell people is utilize any resource you can to do the work that you're not going to be the best at. Cause I ended up being a jack of all trades and a master of none because I was, too many hats and too much going on.
Yeah. I think, and that's the hard thing, when you're an entrepreneur, you start off as a generalist, and you have to do all the things because there is nobody else. But then in order to grow, you have to be okay with becoming a specialist or, you're hiring specialists yourself, right? Ideally. And especially when it comes to things like books and taxes and, keeping all that IRS data clean, it's important to have a good foundation. And unless it's something you love doing, which I don't know that many people that love it, but there are people that love doing that, then, really focusing on what you know how to do best is always going to be 100% of the time the right answer.
Absolutely. And that goes for everybody on your team too, getting everybody in the right seat, knowing what their strengths are and putting them in a place where they can really excel and utilize those strengths.
Yeah. And I feel like that's something you have to continually check in on too. As people evolve, they'll have different ambitions, different things they want to learn. They want to feel like there's progression. Obviously, you've had your first employee now for, was it 8 years, you said? So you're doing something right. They feel like they're a part of, what you started. And so what do you feel about, as you're building more employees, you need to build more systems. And you were talking to me a little bit earlier about okay, I've caught a couple different ways where I can not only just like implement a system, but it's like, this is how you get it started and get people started doing things. So maybe walk me through how you do it. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I will first off admit one of my weakest points would be holding people accountable. I don't like telling grown people or even younger, anybody really, what to do or how to do it. Like our accounts receivables were always crazy because I feel like I shouldn't have to be chasing old people for money. But what you realize, and it's all through the processes of what order you do it. So ours was getting a bookkeeper that helped us justify in our head that these are the prices we need, because once you know your numbers, you know exactly what, you know what your loaded overhead is, you know what this is, your labor rates, everything else. And you're able to do that. So then I don't have to have that like I empathize for these customers because, they're larger ticket items and nobody's excited to change their, heating and air conditioning systems, or, most people, don't have the extra $10,000, $15,000 to do it. So it's a big event for them.
Yep.
So we just need to make sure that it's like, what I tell the guys is we're not in the business of fixing things. We're in the business of experience. So we want to create a good experience. Now, as you scale and get more people, that's where the other move that I should have done way earlier came in, and that was Housecall Pro. Just because we were doing everything on like Google Maps for one, handwritten, we're showing up at jobs. They're not there. We didn't know what to do to charge of anything else, or we're missing calls, everything along the way. And what I really liked about Housecall Pro, I did my due diligence on looking into all these different, CRMs and everything else. And I liked the model that you guys went with, where it can kind of grow with you. So you can start at this base one, and then as you grow, you can start adding different features that might make sense at the time and get to a place. And then over the last 3.5 years we've been there, it's been awesome to be part of the Housecall Pro Facebook community. Like, there's people in there that are just there to complain. There's people in there that are to go out against the complainers. And then as a whole, what's the most important is the people, you guys at Housecall Pro, are listening, and to see all the changes just in the last, 2 years even. And you guys are creating a product that, it's hard to do a one size fits all, especially when you're hitting all these different industries, whether you're a cleaner, you're this. And I think that you guys have made it extremely user-friendly and work really well. Some of the features that I do want to go to, and I know that this is kind of what we were talking about before, was with systems. As you're scaling, you need to have something in place. And with me not being the best at accountability, the numbers make it easier to justify things. Or if there's a notification that says that they have to do something, it's going to help a lot with that. So we use the checklist for two things. So we have it built in for certain jobs. If they're going out to like bid a job, they go through and get all their checklists, so we can make sure we have all the right information to get a proper bid. But what we started doing about 6 months to a year ago, and it's worked out really well, is we'll actually put a checklist that just says like, did you input your receipt today? So like when job costing came out, that was huge. It's going to help us get more data. Data is like one of the most valuable resources out there. And so, I mean, I'm sure the guys were annoyed because every time they go to finish a job, it just has this checklist that they can't finish until it says, did you upload your receipt, or did you verify a job tag if you sold a job, or anything else? And we put them on there, and then, over time, it becomes a habit, and then we can take that away and use it to help with the next system.
Yeah, I love that you're using checklists to introduce new systems, and that once it becomes a habit, then you can focus on other things. But I feel like, especially if you have a hard time holding people accountable, being able to point at a thing, or just having it part automated for you so that they're just doing it and you're enforcing it every single time, I think helps build the muscle that ultimately helps you scale your business because other folks are doing it the way that it needs to happen every single job versus, as an owner operator, you're at the job, things happen or they don't. But once you've got some employees out there running around, you don't know what they're doing. You're not riding along. You're not sitting shotgun. So I love how you utilize the checklist feature to accomplish that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's going to be better for everybody in the long run. And we do in our meetings, we talk about why these things are important. Here's the why, here's this, and everybody's able to have their input too on what they want. And like, we've got guys that are helping to build systems now too, to make things run better. We'll go over pain points and say, okay, this happened. Here's our list. What's our biggest pain point and what's our solution? Or let's all work together on this. We really want it to be a community to grow. And when I first did our org chart, I put like the customer at the top, and I agree that the customers, like, they're very, very important. But as you scale, one of the things that I miss the most is that personableness you have with the customer. And then I'm just trusting other people to do that. Well, if you treat those people well, it's going to go down to the customer. So
really it's like the employee on top, almost like it's a reverse.
Yeah.
It's like you're at the bottom and you're serving all of these people and they're all at the top. And you're trying to make sure that they can have all the tools they need to do the job.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's why we've got anyone that we've had to let go doesn't come down to the amount of production or their work. It comes down to getting along with others. And we've got an amazing team. Everyone's hanging out outside of work. Everyone gets along, but everyone also understands, like, hey, there's a job to do. And we all get excited to do this together, because I'll tell you what, I couldn't do it alone. And it takes a team to do it, for sure.
Definitely. And I think too, as you start to grow, you really need to make sure you're automating things, especially like low level things that can be automated relatively easily. I don't think you can automate, showing up the customer's home, with a nicely pressed uniform and, saying sir and ma'am and like all the things that your brand might represent. You can't automate some of those pieces. You can maybe automate like the on my way text, be like, here's a picture of the person that's coming. But there's other things too that you can automate in your business that are low level. We were talking a little bit about some of those that you wish you had kind of used earlier on in your business. What took you so long, and then why do you think it's so good?
Well, so what took me so long is I have a really high risk tolerance, but I have a hard time with commitment, I think. And I look at it and you're like, okay, this isn't gonna work. This won't. Man, and this is for the pipeline. It was a game changer for us. And, everyone's like, oh, if I could just clone myself, if I could have 2 of me, if I could have 4 of me, it would be great. Well, you can. It's called automation. You can write the emails. You can decide exactly what they want to see, but you still are able to utilize your time working on the business and not in the business, because it's all automated.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, even our accounts receivable, just from the pipeline and the follow-ups on estimates, everything else. It's been huge. So,
yeah, I think those are simple things that just have like this mental tax kind of, and you're like, oh, I got to remember with that bit. I got to go follow up. But it always kind of like falls down like on the priority list. And then all this life happens. And then you forget about that follow-up. But, the folks that win are the ones that follow up. And then the best part is like you can customize the follow-up to be in your voice, in the tone and brand and image of your company with the service level that you want. So a lot of people are like, oh, Roland, automation, people don't like it because it seems like a bot's doing it or something. I'm like, yeah, if you use default messages and if you make it sound like, did you see the estimate? Well, yeah, sure. After a time, like customers will be like, all right, this is obviously automation. Versus you put a little time to set it up. I think a lot of people, maybe this goes back to kind of your commitment thing that you said, but you have to commit to setting it up and spending a little bit of time to getting it right, and then just pushing the on button. And then as you get feedback, you can tweak it a little bit, you can move it around, you can add an extra part to the sequence if you feel like it needs it. But I feel like a lot of people are just, perfect as the enemy of done. And they're just like, I don't know, it's just not this. I don't have the time to do it. But, the sooner you set that stuff up, that time savings is going to compound over time to free you up to work on the stuff that you can't automate. And that's the stuff that makes an even bigger lasting impression with the customers.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree. And we hear it all the time. Like, even like people replying to them, even though it is, automated, like, thank you so much. Or, there's people that are still super grateful and engaging with it. And on top of that, it's just brand recognition. Like, Coca-Cola doesn't need to advertise. Everybody knows what it is, but you got to keep in front of everybody.
Yeah. And I mean, other things to automate too, like your guys' reviews, you got a perfect 5-star, like 150 stars. Like, you've been growing that thing like crazy, and that really helps pull in new business. And I feel like earlier businesses aren't setting that up soon enough. And it's one of those, it's like, man, if there's one thing that I hear from like business owners that have been in it for a while, they're like, oh man, I wish that thing would have been on since day one.
Yeah.
Since day one.
Yeah.
What's your sequence? Like, how do you help get more reviews? Like, what do you tell, the guys out in the field to say? How does that work?
I think that comes down to the same thing with just treating your guys really well. And then I'm like, I read a book called Leaders Eat Last, and Simon Sinek kind of goes over GM's business model and Costco's. And GM is bottom 5% get cut. Doesn't matter if you're executive, anything else. And then Costco's like, maternity leave for men and like good benefits. And their turnaround rate is like way less than what they have here. And both are getting stuff done. I prefer to go this route because, just like I was saying earlier, it trickles down. So, we've got systems in place to where, to help push them to try for these things. But really, even with Housecall Pro, just sending the text, we get, when you are getting like 1 to 3 reviews every 6 months, one bad review is going to be a lot worse than when you're getting, 50 to 100 to kind of really show who you are. So, yeah. And that's another thing that I would not have wanted to do. Like, hey, judge me, tell me how great I am, and it just automatically does it, however you want. And it's been a game changer for us.
Yeah, definitely. And like, speaking of underrated features or features that pros don't know enough about, that might not get the recognition, what features do you think more pros or things they should be doing inside of Housecall Pro that they might not know about or might not appreciate enough because they haven't reached the stage yet where you're at?
Yeah, pipeline was probably the biggest game changer for us, just because it put everything in a little box, easy. Everything's there. The roadmaps are like Christmas for me. I get it every email. I go in, I try for every beta. Like, even yesterday, I was going just through the app store, like seeing if there's anything new that I missed and what I can turn on and what I can't. Because like I said, if you can create more review, and there's a lot of that built into there, automation is huge. And, especially with AI and what you guys are starting to roll on that. I don't know how much we can go into that, but there's people that are going to get left behind. It's just like going from the day of the paper invoices and the checks, and the people that didn't want to adapt got left behind. And this is something that is on track to already be way smarter than any human. And then it's going to 10x every year. If you're not utilizing that, you're never going to be able to keep up.
Yeah, I'm excited about our AI team because they're just like team members that would normally be a part of your team. That's like staff augmentation, and rather than having to pay like a full salary, you're going to pay not even a fraction of it, pennies, on a salary essentially. And then the beauty of it is it's working on just your data. So it's going to know your business inside and out. It's going to know all your checklists. It's going to know all your numbers. It's going to know all these things. And I feel like, automations is one thing, but just adding extra horsepower I mean, you could be operating like a 20-person company
Yeah.
without having to pay for a 20-person company. And I think that's where I feel like there's going to be more VSMBs, like very small businesses, that are going to be operating like, medium-sized businesses because they've got all this AI support. And so that's one thing that I'm personally working on and just super excited by, because I think that's going to unlock so much for our pros, especially because not everyone likes to dig into the numbers. They might want to know, like, hey, how many replacements did Brandon sell in May? I want to know that number. And like, I don't want to create pivot table on pivot table and, create up a special report for that. I just want to ask a question, because that's all I'm looking for the answer to. So I think there's so many people out there, me included. I don't want to sit in Tableau or some data visualization model to try to figure out an answer. I'm just going to ask a question, and we have people that do it at our company that actually will go find the answer.
Absolutely.
But AI can do that, and so that's definitely something I'm super excited about, that I hope people don't sleep on or are afraid to try because they've heard all this stuff in the news and, AI is going to take over the world. The reality is home services is probably the last of all the different trades, all the different skills to ever be AI'd away.
Look at all the private equity. There's huge companies coming in because we do have that barrier against this thing that is going to be really powerful, and unfortunately is going to take out some jobs, but people can also use it as a tool to just be better at their job and use more of their own creativity. And like we were talking about with reporting, there's so many reports that, I'm constantly thinking of different things, and it's like, oh, I'm curious about this. Okay, do I want to spend a full day getting all the data for that when I could just be like, hey, get me this information, and like in no time flat, you've got it all there at your fingertips.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited for that to continue rolling out, and it's going to start out as like a kindergartner, and it's going to graduate to be like a fifth grader, and it's going to become like, a middle schooler and a high schooler. And then, like it's going to keep getting better and better and better. And I think, if you can learn what that grows up, you'll really be able to kind of reap all the benefits of it and get the first mover advantage. I mean, pros don't forget, like there's still not a lot of pros using Housecall Pro. If you think, I don't know, what do we have, 40,000 plus or so businesses, there's a couple million, in the US alone. So that's still a small percentage. And you've got like this little superpower, like use it as much as you can, like to get that advantage. And I like how you put it, which is just like try to automate all the things. I like it.
Absolutely. And and what's cool about it is you still have control over that automation. So you're not losing all your control. You're not just saying, hey, robot, do my job.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're still doing it. You're utilizing this to be like a partner to help you be more efficient. So
yeah, for sure. You're pretty active in the community. You see the Superpro community, and you're active in a lot of the things that Nordenson's doing over there. Tell me like a little bit about your experience in it and why you take part in, why you log in, and why you're constantly looking around in it and participating. What's the value for those that aren't in it or aren't super pros?
Yeah, for sure. So in general, constant learning. That's like, I don't have a budget on anything education. Like the wife, if she wants something that's going to help her learn, I think that's going to be the most important thing. Well, who better to learn from than people in other markets doing the same thing, going through the same struggles as you. And it's a community that really has been awesome, wanting to help each other. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I don't even think the world knows I have a 2-year-old because I don't really post anything online. I don't do it. And I should do more because it's, for the business, but I just had a thing about where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do that. Stop watching the news, stop doing that. But there's just such a slew of information, and you don't know what you're going to find every day. That's kind of the excitement, because one person could hit this key point that you've been thinking about for months and fix it. And just the friendships and, people I've met over the time of being with Housecall Pro, also with Conquer, just always try and just utilize as much as you can, and then give back anything you can. We're still fighting, we're still growing. so are they. I don't know if anyone's ever satisfied. There's never a cap on when you're like, oh, I got to the final level, I'm done with this
you beat
business.
the final boss. All right, we're all done.
I mean, eventually you can either lose it or sell it and prefer the second option. But it's resources and it's free. It's there. It's people being real that are willing to talk. So it's got me back into kind of this social media thing that I had this wishy-washy thing in my head about, but there's just too much information there that's real-time information that there's no reason not to utilize it.
Yeah, I feel like it's great. Being a business owner is lonely sometimes. Being an owner is lonely, and you don't have a lot of people to talk to. You have your spouse, but they might not be involved.
I'll tell you, she doesn't want to hear about it anymore.
Right. And so, like, being able to come somewhere with other businesses that are in the exact same situation, or were in your situation, or will be in your situation one day, is really invaluable for sure.
Yeah, I mean, through all the books I've read, I've realized that we're all very similar humans, in business, through life, through everything. And we all kind of go through the same motions, and why not do it together?
No, for sure. I like it. Why not do it together? Yeah, like that's got to be like a tagline for the community.
Yeah.
Look at this marketing advice. See, I knew that a guy comes up with, that as a name would be good for some input. I love that. Well, is there anything else? We're definitely over time, but is there anything else you wanted to add, or is there anything you would tell, like, younger Brandon getting into business? Any other nugget of wisdom that you wanted to kind of impart here before we wrap up the show?
Yeah. So, I mean, and these are things we kind of already went over, but the first one is value yourself, because, like I said, you can sell a business or lose a business, but it's worse than losing a business is just flatlining a business, losing all your hours with your family, being stressed all the time just to transfer money between people. So value yourself, get your prices right, know your numbers. And then the other thing would just be, fail, learn from your mistakes, always learn, like try to anywhere you can to improve yourself, just try. And, there's going to be hard times and there's going to be awesome times, but don't forget the hard times, because the hard times are usually what create more awesome times.
Ooh, I like that. That's right. I feel like that's definitely true. Been true in my life for sure. Well, thank you so much for all those words of wisdom, Brandon. It's been awesome having you on the show. And hopefully we get the chance to talk again soon sometime.
Yeah, no, I'm extremely honored to be on this. And, as we level up, this is one of those things that was on my list. You set a goal like, hey, I'm going to be a super pro. Okay, I'm going to maybe one day be a Conquer coach. We'll see. I just want to continually set at least some sort of expectation on myself, and what an awesome group to be with to do it.
Well, really appreciate it. No doubt you'll hit all those expectations for sure. Thanks again for coming on the show, and we'll be talking to all you guys next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The Superpro podcast is brought to you by Housecall Pro, the leading platform for the home service industry. Housecall Pro streamlines your workflows and simplifies everything from scheduling and dispatching to communication and billing. Unlock the full potential of your home service business with Housecall Pro. Work smarter and more efficiently with streamlined workflows and detailed analytics. Win more business and serve your customers well, every single time. Join more than 40,000 home service pros who have already revolutionized their businesses. Work smarter with streamlined workflows, get organized with centralized information, and scale your business your way. Learn more at housecallpro.com.